Okay, so Boker Tov. We have a lot to do today. We have a pretty loaded Amud again. This part, I really think from the first Mishnah to the next Mishnah, I was telling Avi, I think it could very well be the hardest part in the entire Masechet. Once we get to the next Mishnah, it gets a drop easier. The third parak is a bit difficult at the beginning of it, or whatever. Well, if we could do these dapim, especially daf tet, these upcoming dapim, the rest of the Masechet should be very doable. Okay, so we're on the top of Daf Yud Aleph Amud Bet. So we have a pretty long Amud today, and it's like involved in a lot of different things. So the last thing we were discussing is Rav's halacha. Rav said Tsarat Sota Asura. That the same way that an erva makes her tzara ptura from yibum and chalitza, so too the tzara of a sota is also asura. A person is not allowed to do yibum to the co-wife of a sota. So what's the case? A man had two wives. One of them became a sota. One of them was unfaithful. She was with somebody else. He warned her. She didn't listen. She went, and she was with somebody else. So the guy kept her. He didn't divorce her. He's supposed to divorce her. He didn't divorce her. So the co-wife, this guy dies now. These two women fall to Yibum. So Rav says a big chidush. The sota is like an erva, even though there's no isur karet or anything like that, and it's not really an erva. But since it says tum'ah by the sota, Rav says since it says tum'ah by the sota is like an erva, and a sota deoraita is pitura, and there's no yibum and chalitza for her or for her co-wife. That was Rav's halacha. The Gemara challenged it, and Rav said, no. I'm only talking about a sota deoraita, and not a sota derabanan, and I'm only talking about a vadai sota, not a sota safek. I'm not talking about somebody who just went into the room with another guy. We know for sure what she did. We know for sure she went all the way. That's what I'm talking about. So we're up to the very top of Yud Aleph Amud Bet, where it says, Umayshna, third line, beginning of the line. It says, Umayshna sota vadai, mishum dichtiv ba tum'ah, sota savek nami tumaktiva ba. So the Gemara says, 1 second, Rav, what's the difference between a vadai sota and a safek sota? Your whole reason was a sota is like an erva because it says the word tum'ah by a sota. Well, it says the word tum'ah by a safek sota also, by a sota who just went into the room with this guy, and we don't know what she did. She may have not, been intimate with him. We don't know. So it says tum'ah by that also. Titania, Rabbi Yossi ben. So now we're going to a Braita. This Braita is a little bit off topic, but it's very on topic. Okay? So Rabbi Yossi ben Kiver Omer, Mishum Rabbi Elazar, Hamachazir Grushato Mina Nisuin, Asura, Mina Yerusin Muteret. So we have to become familiar with the concept of Machazir Grushato. What's Machazir Grushato? Somebody who divorces his wife. So a person is allowed to remarry his wife that he divorced. As long as he's not a Kohen, yeah. Now, let's say he divorced his wife, and then she was with somebody else. So the halacha is, it's a pasuk in the Torah. If she marries someone else, and then divorces that guy, or that guy dies, he's not allowed to take her back anymore. That's machzir grushato. He's not allowed to take back his wife that he divorced once she got married to somebody else. It's straight out. It says, Lo yuchal ba'ala harishon lashuv lekachta acharei asher hu tama'a. The first husband is not allowed to take her back after she divorces from somebody else. Now the question is, let's say she just had erusin. She only accepted kiddushin from somebody, but they didn't fully consummate the marriage. They didn't have chuppah and nisuin. Right? In a Jewish marriage, there's two stages. There's kiddushin, which is the betrothal, which is the first step of what happens under the chuppah nowadays. And then there's nisuin. Nisuin is the complete finalization of the marriage. Yichud, whatever chuppah is, big machloket. The tzara shava between all the shitas of what chuppah is it's something that is kirva labia. But the point is, there's two stages. So let's say this guy divorced his wife, and she accepted kiddushin from somebody else, and then that guy died, or that guy divorced her. So what's the status? Is it asur for the first man to take this wife back because it's machzir grushato? She was with somebody else and he divorced her. Or do we say, no, that was only kiddushin. That wasn't enough of being with somebody else. That wasn't nisuin. She was never fully married to the other guy.
Doesn't get?
It requires a get, but when the pasuk says that he's not allowed to take her back, is that talking about even when she only has kiddushin, or also or only when she has when she's fully married to another guy and they actually had bia together? So says the Gemara, we have a machlok. Rabbi Yossi Mekifer Omer Mishum Rabbi Elazar Hamachazir Grushato Mina Nisuin Asura Mina Nisuin Muter. Rabbi Yossi Mekifer says if she just received kiddushin, she accepted kiddushin, and then divorced, she's allowed to go back to her original husband. Mishum Shneimar Acharei Asher Hutama, because the pasuk says he's not allowed to take her back after she Acharei Asher Hutama, which we're understanding means she had bia with him. There was a physical intimacy. But Chachamim argue, and they say no. Achad zu v'achad zu asura. Both of them, whether she got divorced from kiddushin, whether she got divorced from nisuin, it doesn't matter. Even if she just accepted kiddushin and got divorced, she's still asura to the original husband. So, if that's the case, elamani mekayem hutama'a. What does the pasuk mean when it says the husband divorced her, she was with somebody else, she's not allowed to go back to the first husband because hutama'a? Well, what does that word mean? According to Rabbi Yossi ben Kiver, it means they had bia. But according to Chachamim, that even if there was no bia, there was just a kiddushin, that's enough to make it that she's not allowed to go back to her original husband. What is this word hutama'a doing? So Chachamim tell us that word is coming to include a completely different case. Not talking about somebody who divorced his wife, but a kind of similar case. L'rabot sota shenistera. It's coming to include a case of a sota who nistera, who she went in secret with another man. She went in private with another man. So this is the question. The Gemara is asking, well, you're telling me that there's a difference between Rav. You said Sarat Sota is Asura, and there's a difference between Vadai and Safek. Well, over here, you see the way the Rabbanan are learning, it's Safek Sota, and still she's not allowed to be with her husband. So the Gemara says, no, my Nistera, Nivala. Nistera means Nivala, means she was with the other guy. Not that she actually had Bia with him, not that she just went in secrecy. Why is it called Nistera? Lishna ma'al yanakat. It's just using a nice lashon, but it's not a Safek Sota, it's a Vadai Sota.
Safek Sota is still could be a husband, yeah.
That's what we're saying right here. Yeah, means when it says Acharei Asher Hutama'a, that means that it's talking about that she had Bia. She's a Vadai Sota. But a Safek Sota would not. Okay, so the Gemara says further, okay, so Nivala Tuma Behediak Tivba. The Gemara says, what are you talking about? Whoa. If you're telling me that Nistera means they had Bia, we have a different pasuk that says clearly that V'nistera v'hinitma. There's a different pasuk in the parsha of Sota that says that. So the Gemara says Lemeka Mala Belav. This pasuk of in the parsha of Machazir Grushato, of a guy who divorced his wife and is retaking her, where it says Acharei Asher Hutama'a, is coming to tell me, by using that word Acharei Asher Hutama'a, is coming to tell me that by a Sota there's an additional, not additional, but there's a lav on top of the whole parsha of Sota, but there's a lav, there's an isur for a man whose wife was unfaithful to be together with his wife, to take her back. You know, Rabbi Yossi ben Kifer, what about Rabbi Yossi ben Kifer? He learned Acharei Asher Hutama'a was not talking about such a case. He learned Acharei Asher Hutama'a was talking about a case of Machazir Grushato. That's what he learned. So, lav besota letle. He does not hold there is a lav of staying with one's wife when she's a sota, when she was with somebody else. Va'afilu zenai nami, even if she was mizaneh, even if she went behind his back and went with another guy, and he knows about it, and she knows about it, and it's public, whatever, everybody knows about it. Doesn't matter. There's no isur according to Rabbi Yossi ben Kiva. My ta'ama havaya ve'ishut ktiv ba. What's his reason? Because it says v'halcha v'hayita le'ish acher. It says it's important to be acquainted with these psukim. The pasuk says that if a husband gave his wife a get, v'halcha v'hayita le'ish acher, and then she went with another man, usne'ah ha'isha acharon, and the other man didn't like her, v'chatav la sefer kritut v'natan b'yada, the other man wrote a get and gave it to her.
But they had the biyah together.
So Rabbi Yossi ben Kiefer is learning that yes, they had biyah together.
So it's a suit to it.
That's the way Rabbi Yossi ben Kiefer is learning, because it says acharei asher hu tama'a and it says havaya halcha v'hayita. They got married and they had a biyah. Rabbanan are learning differently. The Rabbanan are learning no, even if there's just Erusin, even if there was just Kiddushin, she can't go back to her original husband. Okay. But
Is that a chidush? What's a chidush on?
No. What do you mean? It's the way they're learning the psukim. Okay, I don't want to take too much time because we really have to fly. But just to clarify, there's a pasuk. There's a few psukim. It's talking about somebody who divorced his wife, taking her back. So it says, Lo yuchal ba'ala harishon lashuv lekachta acharei asher hutama. The husband is not allowed to take her back after she became timea. Those words, acharei asher hutama, Rabbi Yossi ben Kiefer says it's talking about that she had biyah, and if she didn't have biyah, if there was just kiddushin, and then the lady got divorced from kiddushin, the first husband is allowed to take her back. Chachamim say, no. Even if there's no kiddushin, the husband is not allowed to. Even if there's only kiddushin and there was no biyah, the husband is not allowed. The original husband is not allowed to take her back. Once someone else does kiddushin, she's finished. Why? They learn from halcha v'hayta havaya. Even no biyah. What do they do with the word acharei asher hutama'a? This part is important. They learn that word is referring to a sota. Acharei asher hutama'a is telling you there's an isur for a husband to be with his wife who was a sota. That's what they learned from those words. Rabbi Yossi ben Kiefer doesn't have such an isur. So now we're shifting gears. That was Ad Kan we were talking about Tzarat Sota. We had said Rav's halacha, Tzarat Sota. So we have about 10 minutes to fly through the rest of the daf. So Ba mine Rav Yehuda Rav Sheshet Hamachazir grushato misheniset v'met. Okay, case is, we're shifting gears now. No longer talking about the sota. We're talking about machzir grushato. So this guy, he had 2 wives. He divorced one of them. She married somebody else. And then that guy died. And the first husband took her back. Okay, so he did an isur. He was machzir grushato. And then he died. Now these 2 ladies fall to yibum. That's the case. Okay, so someone took back his wife, he died, these 2 ladies fall to yibum. So the case is, what's the deal with the tzara? That's the question. We're not talking about the lady herself, the lady who was divorced and taken back. We're not talking about her. The question is, does she poter her tzara? Okay, so if you remember, Rav, the kiddushin is chal. It's not a karet. It's not karet to take back a grusha. The kiddushin is chal. That, according to everybody, the kiddushin is chal because it's only a lav. But the question is she poter her tzara from yibum? Now, what's the question? So the Gemara is going to express the question in 2 different ways. But basically, the question is, according to Rav, he said tzarat sota is p'tura. Why? Because it says tuma. So over here also it says tuma, maybe. So again, ba mine Rav Sheshet, Rav Yehuda Rav Sheshet. Hamachzir grushato misheneiset v'met tzarata mahu. What's the deal with the tzara over here? Does she require chalitza yibum or no? I'll leave it to Rabbi Yossi ben Kifar lo tibailach. Don't ask according to Rabbi Yossi ben Kifar why. Kevan damar Rabbi Yehuda ben Kemar damar Rabbi Yossi ben Kifar tuma b'machzir grushato hu dichtiva tzarata kamota. maybe according to Rabbi Yosef ben Kiefer, since it says tum'ah by machzir grushato, meaning he says when it says acharei asher hu tama'a, that was talking about someone who divorced his wife and took her back. So since it says tum'ah, so that means that she, right, like what Rav said before, that tuma makes it like arayot, and since it's like arayot, there's no yibum, no chalitza, and sarata kamota, her co-wife is like her. V'mishum dichtiv ba to'evahi, but maybe it says, since it says to'evahi, we would learn he to'eva. Maybe there's room to say that she's a to'eva, but her tzara, her co-wife, would be muteret and would require yibum or chalitza. So we say no. He to'eva ve'in baneha to'evin. When it says to'eva, she is a to'eva, it's not coming to tell me that her co-wife is okay. It's coming to tell me that her children are not mamzerim. He to'eva ve'in baneha to'evin. There's no psul in her children. Hatzarata to'eva, but the tzara also is a to'eva. So according to Rabbi Yossi ben Kiefer, it wouldn't be a question because it says tum'ah by machzir grushato. So that would make her like an erva when it comes to yibum, and the tzara would also be p'tura from yibum. Kiti ba'ilach, when do we have this question about the machzir grushato? Alib de Rabbanan. Question would be in the world of the Rabbanan. Af agav da'amu Rabbanan tuma besotahu dichtiv. Even though the Rabbanan, they cut and paste that part of the pasuk, acharei asher hu tama, they cut it out of machzir grushato and they say that it's talking about sota. So it never says by machazir grushato, by someone who divorces his wife and takes her back, it never says tuma. So do we say, nevertheless, en mikra yotze midei pshuto? The pasuk doesn't, you don't take, like at the end of the day, the actual pasuk is talking about machazir grushato, someone who divorced his wife and took her back. So maybe still, even though they learn those words are coming to include a sota, but at the end of the day, the simple pshat of the pasuk is that it's talking about machzir grushato, and therefore, when it says acharei asher hu tama, it's talking about machzir grushato, and they would agree that the machzir grushato is like an erva because it says tum'ah by it. O dilma, or maybe I could tell you kevan de iakar, since that pasuk was uprooted and it's no longer talking about, those words are no longer talking about machzir grushato, that's it, and we're finished. It's not talking about machzir grushato anymore, and therefore you have no source that it says tum'ah by machzir grushato, and therefore it would not be patur from, the tzara would not be patur from yibum chalitza. That's one way of expressing the question. Igadamri, some express the question the opposite way. I'll leave the Rabbanan loti ba'ilach. It's not a question according to Rabbanan why came in the yakor, because once the words of the pasuk that say acharei asher hu tamaha were cut out and they're no longer talking about machzir grushato, so then you have no source that it says tum'ah by machzir grushato, by somebody who divorced his wife and took her back. Therefore, the tzara of that woman would do yibum. Kiti ba'ilach, aliv de Rabbi Yossi ben Kifar. The question would be, according to Rabbi Yossi ben Kifar, mai, what would the halacha be? Af agav dam Rabbi Yossi ben Kifar tum'av machzir grushato dichtiva mi'et rachamana hi toeva ve'en sarata toeva. Do we say that, well, the pasuk says by machzir grushato, it says tuma. So maybe that would mean that she is like an erva, but the pasuk says he toeva he, she is a toeva, which maybe would come to exclude the co-wife, that there's no issue with the co-wife, and you would do yibum or chalitza to the co-wife. O dilma hi toeva ve'en banei toevin, or maybe when it says he toeva, it means she is a toeva, but not the children. The children are not toevas. Hatzarata toeva, but the tzara is a toeva, and there's no yibum or chalitza to the tzara. Long way of expressing the question. Bottom line is, some learn the question is in the world of Rabbanan, some learn the question is in the world of Rav Yossi ben Kifar, but what is the deal by tzarat machzir grushato? Okay, interestingly enough, it's important to note, we're not asking about the machzir grusha herself. We're not asking about the woman who got divorced and remarried her husband. We're talking about the co-wife. Later on, the Gemara is going to bring up the woman herself. And Tosfot also here asks why we don't talk about the woman, but no time for that now. So a case is clear. Man divorced his wife. She got married to somebody else.
Yeah.
He took her back afterwards. He died. What's the deal with the co-wife when it comes to Yibum, the other wife? So says the Gemara. So Tenitua. Amalei Tenitua. Haita. So he said we have this case. We learned this case. Haita achad kshira v'achad psula. So the Gemara is bringing a later Mishnah. It says, let's say the guy had two wives. One of them is kshira, one of them is psula. Okay. So im haya choletz lipsula, v'im haya miyabim lekshira. If a guy has two wives, two ladies fell to him to yibum. One of them is kasher, one of them is pasul, and we don't know what that means yet. We're gonna find out. The Gemara is gonna figure it out. But if he's doing, the Gemara is giving advice. If he's doing yibum, do yibum to the kasher. If he's doing chalitza, do chalitza to the psula. Meaning, when two ladies fall to yibum to one guy, so he only has to do one act. Or let's say two ladies fall to two brothers. Doesn't matter. One brother has to do one act, either yibum or chalitza to one of the women, and that takes care of everybody. So this guy only has to do one thing. So if he wants to do yibum, so he should do yibum to the kshera. If he wants to do chalitza, he should do chalitza to the pesula. So now, my kshera or my pesula? What are we talking about? What's kasher and pasul over here? If you're telling me kshera means she's kasher to go marry a kohen, and pesula means she's pasul to marry a kohen, so kevan delididech my nafka lemina. But they're both good for him. He could marry either one. The guy is not a kohen, so he could marry either one. So who cares if it's kshera or psula to somebody else? Let him do chalitza or yibum to whichever one that he chooses. Ella lav kshera le, psula le. It must mean that kshera means kasher to him and psula means pasul to him. Umay niu machzir grushato. It must mean that it's talking about machzir grushato. So the Gemara wants to assume that the case is two women fell to him. One of them is kshera, she's no problem. The other one is psula, that was a machzir grushato. So it's saying if you want
for him, not for anybody else.
Yes, that's what we're saying. Psula means psula l'alma. So, Boker Tov. So if kshera means kshera to himself and psula means a psula to himself, so that would mean that it's a machzir grushato. We're taking the lady took back the husband took back his wife and then he died. So we're saying that the tzararu could do yibum. So this is answering our question. Our whole question was, what's the deal with the co-wife? Yibum, no yibum, or no yibum? Right? Is she peturah from yibum or not? We're saying if he wants to do yibum, he should do yibum dafka to her, and the other one requires chalitza. So the Gemara says, "V'ktani imaya miyabim lekshera." You see that she requires yibum. So machzir, the tzara of a machzir grushata requires yibum. So the Gemara says, "Lo." Leolam kshera la alma psula alma. No, really, kshera and psula doesn't mean machzir grushata. We're not talking about someone who's kasher to him and pasul to him. We're talking about somebody who's kasher and pasul to go out there and marry somebody else. Beteka amrat kevan delidide chazia my nafka le mina. We said before, okay, if it's kasher to the outside world, we're talking about somebody who's one of the wives was divorced before and she's pasul to a kohen, and one of the wives was not and she's muteret to a kohen. If that's what we're talking about, so again we asked, who cares? Let the guy himself choose which one. They're both ra'ui to him. So mishum de Rav Yosef, we learn a very important halacha that Rav Yosef teaches. Dam Rav Yosef, kan shana Rebbe. Over here, Rebbe or Shina Rebbe learned, lo yishpoch adam mei boro va'acherim tzrichim lahem. A person shouldn't dump out his water when other people need it. What does that mean? If these two women, listen, it's if these two women, one of them is a grusha, one of them is not. So we're talking about just regular. One of them is just a grusha. There was no Isser in any marriage. Well, guy married two women. One of them was already married before; she was divorced. One of them was not, and he dies and he falls to yibum. So we're saying his brother, if he wants to do chalitza to the grusha. Why? Because the other lady, if you do chalitza, you're making her pasul to a kohen midrabanan.
Oh, yeah.
So why would you, if you're gonna do chalitza, do it to the one that's what's it called? That's pasul. Yeah, that's pasul already. Right? Don't spill out your water that other people needed. Right? Lo yishpoch adam mei boro v'achem tzrichim lahem. Save it for somebody else. Okay, so therefore that we had no proof from there whether a person was allowed to marry, or allowed to do yibum to the tzara of machzir grushato. So we go on to the next potential proof. So again, question was, cases, machzir grushato, a guy divorced his wife, took her back. What's the deal with yibum to the tzara? So tashma, machzir grushato misheniset, hi v'tzarata choletzet. It says someone who takes back his grusha once she gets married, hi v'tzarata choletzet, her and her co-wife do chalitza. The Gemara says, what are you talking about? That makes absolutely no sense. Hi v'tzaras al kadaitach, her and her tzara, ella ema ohi o tzarata. It must mean either her or the co-wife require chalitza. So the Gemara says, okay, that's no proof that the tzara requires chalitza. This braita was messed up to begin with. It said her and her tzara. So once you're fixing it up, you can fix it up and change it. Once you fix, didn't you just have to adjust the braita because it wasn't something that was sensical? So taritzachi, so you can adjust it and learn it like this. He choletzet, she does chalitza tzarata, o choletzet o midyabemet. The tzara maybe could do chalitza, maybe could do yibum. So we still do not know at this point if the tzara is allowed to do yibum. We didn't find a good proof. We're gonna stop here. This is where we're holding. Good news is the next Gemara is pretty similar to the whole Gemara that we did. It's pretty much a repeat, so should be very easy, B'ezras Hashem.